Okay, we had a really interesting lesson today. We had a lesson about proxy wars, and we looked at what we call my father's Cold War experience and are we entering a new Cold War era, right? And I'm going to try to piece together this small diagram to help explain what I mean by my father's Cold War and my Cold War. But first, let's do a quick recap of last time we looked at the world that we used to live in. Last week before Russian aggression, this was a U.S. Western dominated world. We saw this free movement of people, free movement of resources, financial capital bouncing around the world. A Russian student could go to a UK university. A Canadian investor could invest in Russian companies. Before the ban on SWIFT and flight bans, there was free movement of resources and financial capital just bouncing around the world. And we call this the age of globalization. It was tremendous technological advances, social changes. Globally, poverty was reduced, and probably one massive global pandemic as well. But the world has changed, right? We don't know if it's changed permanently, but in the meantime, it has changed. And, we're concerned about the state of the global geopolitical order. Russia has been economically isolated from the West, and we haven't seen this sort of green barrier line imposed in Russia since the 80s. Now let's go back to this diagram where I'm going to try to piece together my father's Cold War and potentially my Cold War, right? My father was born in 1950. He lived most of his life in this Cold War area where these two massive superpowers, the USA and the Soviet Union, with their huge nuclear weapons, threat at that time. So instead of having these two giant superpowers fight directly, they engaged in proxy wars, right? They tried to win the hearts and minds of people from around the world. They tried to tell the whole world that our economic system is the best and that our social infrastructure and social welfare programs are the best and our cultural system is far superior than yours, and join our team, the sort of capitalist West or the communist East. Each formed military alliances, the US with NATO and the USSR with the Warsaw Pact. Now, there were 9 Cold War presidents and 4 Soviet leaders at the time, right? You got everyone from Truman to Reagan, and on the Soviet side, you got from Stalin to Gorbachev, right? And all of these leaders. In the Cold War that my father witnessed, there was the rise and fall of the Berlin Wall. Most of my father's life, Germany and the Berlin Wall was divided into two. There was no unified Germany. And technically, since I was born in 1988, I am older than unified Germany, which is crazy to think about, right? We also witnessed other theaters of these proxy conflicts, right? We saw in Korea War in 1950 to 53, these authoritarian dictators in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un, were able to maintain control in North Korea. We narrowly avoided nuclear war in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis and its Cuban leader Fidel Castro. The Soviets fought a brutal war in Afghanistan against rebel fighters, including Osama bin Laden, from 79 to 89. And the Americans fought an equally, if not more brutal war in Vietnam for 20 years, from 55 to 75. This was against the Vietnamese communist leader, Ho Chi Minh. These were the major events and acts in my father's Cold War. Now we can make the argument looking at the modern Cold War, Cold War Part 2, the new Cold War. It doesn't have a name. I don't know if it's a thing, but we're having that discussion. We still have NATO. Barack Obama was elected in 2008. He was be our first sort of nominee as our first new Cold War president, along with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And each one of these has had to engage in Cold War type of diplomacies with the single Russian leader during this time, Vladimir Putin. The two conflicts that stand out as potential new Cold War conflicts is the first in 2011, the Syrian war conflict with President Bashar al-Assad fighting rebel fighters, leading to a humanitarian crisis, leading to a power vacuum that gave rise to ISIS, and of course the recent Ukrainian crisis, where we see Ukrainian President Zelensky fighting against Russian aggression in Ukraine. Are these part of this new Cold War era in global politics? Are they a continuation of the old Cold War? Have we had 9 U.S. presidents or 12 Cold War presidents? How many Soviet leaders have we had in the Cold War? How many theaters of conflict have we had, proxy wars, in the entirety of this Cold War era? Yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think. This is just my little visual representation trying to connect the two periods of time with the Soviet in the US and now with Russia in the US. Let me know what you think. Comment below. What did I miss? Did I make any mistakes? But this was kind of a cool visual we went over today. Thanks.